You're not going to like what I'm about to tell you, but you need to hear it. Most people will live their entire lives never knowing who they really are, not because they weren't smart enough, not because they didn't have potential, but because they were afraid. Afraid of risking, afraid of failing, afraid of being seen trying. They'll sit in rooms filled with dreams that were never chased, surrounded by plans never started, surrounded by safety, comfort, and mediocrity. But you, if you're still listening, you're not most people. See, somewhere along the way, we were taught to fear risk like it's a villain, like it's this dark force that destroys lives. We were told to play it safe, to stay quiet, to blend in, fit the mold, follow the path, and for what? A paycheck, a title, applause, approval from people who don't even know who you are. Let me ask you this, what's the price of never taking a risk? What's the cost of silence? What happens when you live your entire life with the volume turned down on your own voice? Here's what I've learned from chasing the hard things, from going against the grain, from throwing myself into the fire. The people who never risk anything, they never grow, they never become who they were meant to be. They only get older, not wiser, just older, bitter, safer, smaller, because risk is not the enemy, risk is the bridge. It's the test life gives you to prove you're serious, to see if you have the grit to cross the line from ordinary to unforgettable. You want a story worth telling, you better be willing to bleed for it. Think of the people you admire. Think of the ones who made history, broke barriers, shattered ceilings. Do you think they did it by playing small? You think they were comfortable? No, they were terrified, but they moved anyway. They jumped anyway. They risked everything because they understood there's no legacy without loss, no greatness without gamble, no story without risk. Most people don't grow because they never challenge themselves to do something that scares them. And let me tell you something hard but true. There is no growth without risk. You don't evolve by doing what you've always done. You don't find your power by walking the path of least resistance. You grow when you stand on the edge of something that makes your stomach twist, your voice shake, your heart race, and you do it anyway. Growth doesn't happen in safety, it happens in the uncertainty. It happens when you take the job you feel underqualified for. When you speak the truth you've been holding back, when you walk away from what's easy because you know you're capable of more. That's the moment you change. That's the moment something in you expands. Your courage, your voice, your belief in yourself. And the world doesn't hand you growth. It doesn't give you confidence wrapped in a bow. You earn it, you fight for it, you bleed for it, and that fight, it only starts when you risk something real. When you put something on the line, that's where you find out what you're made of. That's where you discover you're more capable, more intelligent, more powerful than you ever thought. So stop asking for the easy way. Stop waiting for life to get comfortable. Growth is uncomfortable by design. That's how you know it's working. That pressure you feel, that resistance. That's not a warning. It's a signal that you're getting close. Keep going. Because if you never risk, you'll never know just how far you could have grown. Comfort is seductive. It whispers lies to you. Tells you you're fine where you are, that you're doing enough, that now isn't the right time to push harder. But here's the truth: comfort kills potential. It lulls you into routines that keep you small. It convinces you to stay quiet when your voice could shake the room. It keeps you chasing ease instead of excellence. And what's the cost? You never stretch. You never reach. You never find out what you're truly capable of because you're too wrapped up in staying safe, staying accepted, staying liked. But you weren't built to be safe. You were built to rise, to stretch, to break through. And you can't do that if you're always choosing what's easy. Every time you choose comfort over courage, you trade your future for a feeling. That's what most people do. They don't fail because they tried and lost. They fail because they never even stepped in the arena. They chose the illusion of safety over the reality of growth. They chose the couch over the climb, the silence over the statement. Listen, comfort zones are dead zones. Nothing extraordinary ever comes from staying where it's easy. You don't build muscle without tension. You don't build wisdom without mistakes. And you don't build greatness without risk. So if your life feels too easy right now, that's your warning sign. That's not peace, that's stagnation. That's potential wasting away behind fear disguised as being realistic. If you want to become someone who actually lives out their story, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. Often, you're going to have to feel exposed, feel unsure, feel challenged, and you'll survive it. In fact, you'll become someone unrecognizable on the other side of it, stronger, sharper, bolder. But only if you stop settling for comfort and start choosing challenge every single time. Fear is not the enemy. It's information. It's your body telling you, hey, something important is about to happen. But here's the mistake most people make. They treat fear like a stop sign, like it means turn around, go back, stay safe. That's not what fear is. Fear is a signal. It's the internal alarm that you're stepping into something that could actually change your life. If you only moved when you felt fearless, you'd never move. You'd never start the business. You'd never have the hard conversation. You'd never walk into the room where you don't know anyone. Fear will be there every single time you're about to do something that matters. And that's the clue. If fear shows up, it means you're on the edge of growth. It means the stakes are real. And let me tell you, people who do incredible things aren't fearless. That's a myth. They're just better at dancing with fear. They've learned to move forward even when the fear is loud. They've learned that fear doesn't mean stop. It means focus. It means pay attention. And then move anyway. You've got to learn to lean into that discomfort. Train yourself to walk toward what you fear instead of away from it. Because every single time you face fear head on, it loses power. You take back control. And the more you do that, the more your courage becomes the dominant voice in your life. Not your fear, not your doubt, not your excuses. So the next time fear shows up, and it will, don't wait for it to leave. Move with it. Let it come along for the ride, but don't give it the steering wheel. That moment of fear. That's your cue. That's the exact moment to act. Because behind that fear is everything you've been looking for. Regret is quiet, but it's heavy. It doesn't show up with flashing lights or loud warnings. It shows up in the silence, years later, when you're lying awake at night thinking about the things you didn't do, the words you didn't say, the chances you didn't take, and that kind of pain, the pain of what could have been, it lingers. It eats at you slowly, because you can't go back and fix it. You can't rewind time and take that leap. It's done. You can fail and recover. You can fall flat on your face, lose everything, and still rebuild. But regret doesn't give you that option. You can't redo what you never had the courage to begin. And people don't talk about it enough. They talk about failing forward and pushing through, but they don't talk about the brutal weight of wondering what would have happened if you had just tried. We think avoiding risk protects us, but it actually traps us. You might avoid a few bumps and bruises, sure, but you also avoid breakthroughs. You avoid becoming the person who's brave enough to live fully. You avoid the truth, that one moment of fear you gave into, that decision to stay quiet, to stay small. It robs you of a lifetime of what could have been possible. I've sat across from people who are successful on paper, who did everything right, checked all the boxes, and still feel empty, because they know deep down they played it too safe. They lived for the approval of others, followed the script, and silenced their gut. And now they're wondering if this is all there is. That's what regret does. It doesn't scream. It whispers. You could have been more. And that whisper never goes away. So if you think risk is scary, try living with regret. Try waking up in 10 years with a version of yourself you don't recognize, someone smaller, safer, invisible, because you were afraid to just bet on yourself one time. I promise you this, failure might hurt, but it will teach you. Regret teaches you nothing. It just reminds you that you never tried. Every single person you admire, every leader, every changemaker, every legend, they didn't get there by playing it safe. They got there by doing the thing everyone else was too afraid to do. They stepped into risk. Not once. Over and over again. Because they understood something most people never learn. Safety doesn't build legacy. Playing it small never changed the world. You think Rosa Parks wasn't scared. You think Malala didn't feel fear. You think the pioneers of any movement weren't uncertain, weren't doubted, weren't warned to sit down and be quiet. Of course they were. But they didn't let the fear stop them. They moved through it. They risked everything. their comfort, their status, their security, because they knew the story they were writing was bigger than the risk they were taking. We want the rewards, we want the recognition, but we don't want the weight that comes with it. Legacy demands sacrifice, it demands guts. It demands that you stop thinking about how things look and start focusing on what matters. If you want your life to mean something, then you're going to have to do the thing that makes your hands shake. You're going to have to stand when it's easier to sit. Speak when silence is safer. Act when waiting would feel better. No one remembers the person who almost did it. No one tells the story of the one who played it safe and kept their head down. They remember the ones who risked it all, who dared to go first, who chose principle over popularity. That's how you make history. That's how your name becomes more than just something on a business card. So if you want to leave a mark, if you want your life to be more than just a checklist of safe decisions, then you better be ready to risk. Because that's the price of legacy. You either step into that fire, or you spend your life watching from the sidelines while someone else becomes unforgettable. You know what most people don't realize? That not making a decision is a decision. That standing still doesn't keep you safe, it just keeps you stuck. Everyone thinks if they don't move, they can't mess up. That if they keep their head down, don't take the chance, don't raise their voice, nothing bad will happen, but they're wrong. Because inaction has consequences. Huge ones. The cost just looks different, it's not loud. It doesn't knock the wind out of you in one big blow. It drains you slowly, quietly. It's the silent killer of potential. There are people out there who've had the same dream for 10 years, same vision, same desire. But nothing ever changed. Why? Because they thought waiting would bring clarity, because they told themselves they weren't ready yet, because they thought the right time would show up and give them permission. But time doesn't give you clarity. Action does. Movement does. Risk does. And the truth is, if you're waiting for the fear to go away before you act, you'll be waiting forever. You're not stuck because you don't know what to do. You're stuck because you're afraid to do it. Afraid to look stupid. Afraid to fall flat. Afraid to be judged. So you do nothing. You delay. You avoid. You tell yourself you're being patient when you're really just being scared. And the world, it keeps moving. People with half your talent, half your intelligence, they pass you by because they were willing to act. They were willing to be seen trying. They were willing to take the hit. And you sat on your greatness hoping things would somehow align. Let me tell you something hard. You don't get alignment without movement. You don't get answers without action. Sitting on the sidelines doesn't give you clarity. It just makes you a spectator in your own life. And I get it. We've been conditioned to believe that staying still is safer, that not trying is less risky, that the only way to stay protected is to stay passive. But let me ask you this: safe from what? From failure, from rejection, from judgment. Those things don't destroy you. They make you sharper. They teach you something. But you know what does destroy people? That moment they realize it's too late, that their window has closed, that they played it so safe they never even got in the game. Inaction doesn't just waste your time, it drains your confidence. Every time you ignore that gut feeling, that instinct to move, you teach yourself that your fear is the boss. That hesitation is smarter than courage. And every time you do that, you get smaller. You trust yourself less. You become someone who talks more than they act, who dreams more than they build, who hopes more than they lead. That's not a life. That's just survival on repeat. And here's the kicker. You think you're preserving something by waiting, but you're actually losing more than you realize. You're losing time, energy, momentum. Opportunities don't hang around forever. People move on. The doors you're staring at won't always be open, and the version of you who was ready to walk through it, she doesn't stay forever either. She starts to fade when you ignore her too long, and eventually the fire inside goes cold. Not because you weren't capable, but because you weren't willing. The cost of inaction is invisible until it's irreversible. It shows up as dreams unfulfilled, as relationships that never deepened, as careers that plateaued. It shows up in your health, in your energy, in your spirit. You start losing your edge. You stop expecting more. And the scariest part, you don't even notice when it happens. It just becomes your new normal. People always say they want more out of life, But then they wait. For what? The perfect plan, the perfect mood, the perfect version of themselves. That version doesn't exist. You're not supposed to wait until you feel ready. You're supposed to act now, while it's messy, while it's scary, while the fear is still in your throat, because that's when you earn the confidence. You build the belief. You forge the version of yourself who's worthy of the life you want. You don't rise by standing still. You rise by risking, by getting it wrong and showing up anyway, by pushing back against the part of you that wants to hide. You become powerful when you stop running from risk and start recognizing the danger of delay. So don't fool yourself into thinking that doing nothing is the smarter move. It's not. It's just the easier one. And easy never built anything worth having. You want to be the kind of person who looks back at their life and sees impact, influence, fire. Then you need to be the kind of person who acts. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, there's a cost to every choice. Risk costs you comfort. But inaction costs you everything else. Failure isn't the enemy. It's the doorway. Every person who has done something extraordinary, something bold, something legendary, has failed. Not once. Over and over. You don't get to become exceptional without eating dirt, without hearing, no, without watching something you believed in fall apart. That's part of it. That's the toll you pay to rise. But most people run from failure like it's the end of their story. It's not. It's the middle. It's the messy, painful, necessary part that teaches you what success never will. You don't build grit through comfort. You build it through disappointment. You build it when the thing you hoped for doesn't work out, and you get back up and try again. You build it when the world says, "You're not enough," and you decide that you are anyway. I've failed. In ways that were public. In ways that were painful. And I can tell you right now, those moments didn't break me. They built me. They forced me to face myself. To grow teeth. To toughen up, not in a hard, jaded way, but in a focused, fire-tested way. When you fail, the fluff falls away. The ego, the excuses, the fantasy, it all burns. And what's left? Just you, the real you. The one who's still standing. And here's what most people don't understand. Failure is proof that you tried. That you showed up. That you stepped into the arena and risked something real. You think your story is going to mean anything if it's just a straight line of perfect decisions. No one cares about perfection. People connect with struggle, with resilience, with someone who's been knocked down and had the guts to stand back up. The most powerful people you'll ever meet. They've failed. They've been humbled. They've been through seasons where nothing made sense, but they didn't quit. And that's what separates them. Not talent, not luck, grit. The willingness to keep showing up when it's hard, when it's embarrassing, when the shame is loud. So if you failed, or you're in the middle of one right now, good, you're in the fight. You're not hiding on the sidelines where it's safe and forgettable. You're in it. And if you're in it, you're growing. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't just dream big but earns every inch of it. You don't become unshakable by winning every time. You become unshakable by surviving the losses. And the more you survive, the more unbreakable you become. So don't fear failure. Fear being the person who never had the guts to find out how far they could have gone. Because at the end of the day, failure isn't what ends you. It's what wakes you up. Your story doesn't start when everything is lined up perfectly. It doesn't begin when you feel ready, when you have all the answers, when you've eliminated every ounce of doubt. No, it starts the moment you decide to move despite the fear. The moment you stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself. That's the line in the sand between a life of watching and a life of doing. When you stop asking for permission and take the damn leap. Most people are stuck in this loop. Waiting for clarity, waiting for confidence, waiting for someone to tell them it's time. But that moment never comes. Because courage doesn't show up first. Courage comes after you leap. That's what nobody tells you. The confidence, the power, the ownership. You build it through action, not before it. You're not going to feel ready. You're not supposed to. That hesitation you feel, that doubt, that's not weakness. That's the resistance that every strong person has to break through. It's the barrier between who you are now and who you could become. And the only way to cross it is to stop thinking, stop overanalyzing, and start. Start messy. Start scared. Start small. Just start. The story that changes your life doesn't wait for the applause. It begins in silence. It begins in discomfort. It begins when you make one hard choice. To show up. Maybe nobody notices. Maybe nobody supports you. Maybe people roll their eyes or talk behind your back. Who cares? That moment you acted without approval. That's power. That's where your story takes shape. Not in the comfort of being understood, but in the discomfort of standing alone. You were not born to be a background character in your own life. You were built to be a force. But you can't unlock that version of yourself by staying safe. You have to initiate it. You have to declare, through your actions, not your words, that you are done sitting on the sidelines. So whatever it is you've been putting off, launching the business, speaking your truth, ending what's no longer working, building something no one else understands yet, it starts with you deciding that fear isn't the boss anymore. That comfort doesn't run the show. That you're not going to live one more day letting potential rot into regret. This is your line in the sand moment. You want a powerful story. You better be ready to take that first uncomfortable step, even if no one's watching. Because that first step, that's the beginning of everything. Every time you choose to step into something uncomfortable, you get stronger. That's how resilience is built. Not by reading about it, not by thinking positive thoughts, but by facing the hard things and not backing down. You grow it the moment you show up to the challenge instead of running from it. You grow it when you fall, get back up, and move forward without needing applause or validation. That strength you want. That edge. It's earned in moments where you're tempted to quit but choose to keep going anyway. People love to talk about being strong, about being unshakable, but resilience isn't just a buzzword. It's a discipline. And you don't build it when life is smooth. You build it when life throws the worst at you, and you refuse to break. Every risk you take, every time you step out and face fear, uncertainty, rejection, you're sharpening yourself. You're learning that you can handle more than you thought, that you won't crumble when things don't go your way, that you're not fragile. That doesn't mean you won't feel pain. You will. It doesn't mean fear disappears. It doesn't. It means you stop being ruled by it. It means you start using every setback, every obstacle, every scar as fuel. Resilient people aren't the ones who've had it easy. They're the ones who've been through hell and still chose to rise. Over and over. That's what separates the powerful from the passive. And here's what most people never understand. Resilience is not some special gift that a few lucky people are born with. It's a decision. It's a muscle. And you build it through repetition. You build it by leaning into risk, by saying yes when it's easier to say no, by walking through the storm instead of waiting for it to pass. You build it by facing situations that scare you and choosing not to flinch. You want to be unstoppable. Then you need to stop avoiding the fight. You need to stop hiding from the pressure. Because pressure is what forges strength. You're not made stronger by staying safe. You're made stronger by risking, by taking hits and coming back harder. Resilience isn't about being unaffected. It's about being unbreakable. Not because you never fall, but because you always rise. So the next time fear shows up, the next time failure stings or doubt creeps in, remind yourself, this is how I grow. This is how I train. This is how I become the kind of person who can walk into any room, face any storm, and still hold the line. You're not just taking risks for the outcome. You're taking them for the person you become in the process. That's how resilience is born. That's how power is built, one decision at a time. A life without risk is a life that never gets lived. You might survive it. You might get through the years clean and unscarred. But you'll look back and realize you never actually showed up. You were present, but you weren't alive. Because staying safe is not the same as living. Hiding behind what's familiar isn't the same as building a meaningful existence. You weren't put on this earth to be invisible. You were put here to leave a mark. But that won't happen if you keep choosing the easy road. The most authentic life, the kind that sets people on fire when they hear your story, is built through risks. Real ones. The kind that cost you something. The kind that make you doubt yourself, make your hands sweat, make your voice tremble. Because that's the moment you strip off the performance, the pretending, the masks. That's when your truth comes out. Who you really are, not who you think you need to be accepted. Risk is what reveals you. If you're constantly trying to avoid pain, avoid failure, avoid judgment, then guess what? You're also avoiding purpose, avoiding depth, avoiding everything that could give your life meaning. Playing it safe all the time isn't wisdom. It's fear dressed up as logic. And if you let it run your life, you'll wake up one day wondering how you got so far from who you were meant to be. An authentic life is not clean. It's not perfect. It's not filtered. It's messy, it's bold, it's loud in all the right ways. You speak up even when it's uncomfortable. You stand firm even when people misunderstand you. You take the leap even when the net isn't guaranteed. Because the cost of hiding, the cost of suppressing your voice, your dreams, your instincts, that cost is too high. It drains your soul, it steals your fire, and it turns your life into a performance instead of a mission. You don't find fulfillment in what's safe. You find it when you've risked your heart, your pride, your fear, and you survived it. When you realize you didn't need perfect conditions to rise, you just needed the guts to start. That's when life stops being a checklist and starts becoming a force. Not because it's easy, but because it's yours. So if you're still waiting to feel ready before you step up, if you're still trying to avoid risk and keep everything under control, understand this: you're trading your authenticity for approval. You're trading your truth for comfort. And comfort is never going to give you a story worth telling. You want to feel alive. Then stop trying to protect yourself from every crack, and start trusting that what breaks you also builds you. That's not just how you find your voice, it's how you finally use it. So here's the truth, laid bare. If you want to live a life that means something, you have to risk something. You have to be willing to step into discomfort, into doubt, into fear. Not because it feels good, but because it matters. Playing it safe may keep you from falling, but it'll also keep you from flying. You don't get to write a powerful story without stepping into the fire. You don't get to become unshakable without first being shaken. Every moment you hesitate, every time you silence your instincts, you choose comfort over courage, and that choice will cost you everything your future could have been. But the moment you decide to risk, to speak, to stand, to leap, that's the moment your real life begins. That's when your story finally has a pulse. So no more waiting, no more playing small, no more talking yourself out of the life you were built to live. Because in the end, your legacy won't be about how safe you played it. It'll be about how bravely you lived it. No risk, no story, choose the fire, let it forge you, and never look back.